If you're looking for witchy reads this Halloween, I got you. Hello and welcome back to the Looking Glass World. My name is Aradhna Matthews and today we are looking at 5 witchy books that I've got for my girls, or really anybody, this Halloween for you to read and enjoy. And I have arranged them in increasing order of witchiness. So if you're ready to dive into the stack, let's go. At number 5, we have Gallant. Now this is another, I love this cover. It's so pretty. I'm a sucker for books with pretty covers, but I saw this all over Instagram and it was supposed to be a spooky read, so I was like, yes, please give it to me. And the protagonist here is a little girl who does not quite fit in at her school. Something's always a little bit off about her. Nobody quite gets along with her. Oh, and she can see dead people, ghosts and that kind of thing. And she's always remembered being able to see this, so it's something that sticks with her and feels normal to her from the time she was very young. She's an orphan, but the story really begins when she gets a letter from a distant relative saying that he is an uncle of hers. He's been searching for her everywhere, writing to everyone, and please come home. So she does, and she's very excited about this family that she's about to meet, only to find out that that uncle is nowhere in sight. That uncle has died, I think, and its inhabitants are definitely like something is not right, as in our classic Gothic style. I mean, it's even on the cover, your dilapidated mansion. The story explores the idea of different parallel worlds, with this girl kind of bridging the gap between the two in a very fun and interesting way. Is there a lot of depth to this book? No, but it's a lot of fun to read. So I truly enjoyed this, exploring the different characters, exploring the house and the secrets that it holds, and her journey in discovering who she really is. So that's number 5 in our list of witchy reads this Halloween. At number 4, we have House of Hollow. This is another super fun one that I found on Bookstagram. This is slightly more witchy than the previous one, but it has a little bit of darkness to it as well. So it's a story of 3 sisters who disappear when they are children and reappear again sometime later with all their hair turned white and no memories of when they were lost. And from the start, the dad of these girls says, something is off, these are not my daughters. He is eventually driven out of the picture by this madness, and only the mother remains and raises these 3 girls, who in all appearances seem perfectly normal, except that weird things start happening around them, first in more subtle ways, then in more obvious ways. Now, each of these 3 sisters starts to recognize this like mysterious power that they have and use it in different ways, whether to hide from the world or to control the world. And it's a little bit of a take on like women in society today as well, but not so deep as to become the primary focus of the book. But as we move forward, again, this, like Gallant, is an exploration of different spaces and times and places. And the story of these girls, I would say, is a little bit darker than the story of the girl in Gallant, because they have to go on a journey of self-discovery that has a more sinister twist to it. So I really enjoyed the story of these 3 sisters and how they navigated this mystery and this blank period in their lives, and how they had to come back and confront it towards the end, and how all of that has affected their lives as adults as well. It's fun. It's a fun read. It's very entertaining. Love it for Halloween. At number 3, we have Stephen King with Carrie. Now, here's where we get a little bit deeper. So the premise of this book is Carrie is a preteen girl, like just sort of on the verge of adolescence and puberty and all of that. And she comes from a very abusive home. And all the trauma that she's kind of experiencing on a daily basis goes inside and explodes out through the form of telekinetic powers. So things happen around her that she can't explain. She's able to move objects, but she doesn't fully have control over these powers, nor does she fully realize that it's all happening because of her. But her mother, who is the only adult in this picture, no father is present, is filled with this conviction that Carrie is evil. And so she's hyper religious, a religious fanatic, and she spends Carrie's whole life punishing her, making her feel small, ashamed of herself, telling her there's something wrong with her. Extremely abusive relationship between mother and daughter. And it reflects in the way that Carrie holds herself and the life she lives and not able to make friends, is easily victimized and bullied by the other people in her class. And we kind of follow that story in the context of also having to deal with these telekinetic powers that she has and cannot control. The main thing I felt when reading this is sadness, because Stephen King really gets into the head of like a teenage girl going through a lot, but in also a horrible context that is beyond what most of us hopefully will be able to relate to. So it has all your classic teenage tropes of like your popular girl, your school setting, but also something a lot deeper and a lot more painful. And I don't know, a lot of you might have seen the movie. I have not seen the movie, I've just read the book. But the kind of climax of how she, endures, and then finally breaks, and the effect that has and how destructive that force can be is just, it's quite a powerful read, very moving. And I was very surprised to see this from Stephen King. I honestly thought it would be spookier. It's not that spooky, and it doesn't have that kind of gothic eeriness that the previous two books have, but it's still very... I would say it's still great for like a Halloween read with a little bit more depth to it. So it goes beyond just the magic. And that's what I like about this. So this is number 3. At number 2, we have Wayward. I just finished reading this. Another Bookstagram find. I really enjoyed it. And this one also has the whole witch theme, but in a much more sort of magic realism style. So it's not as obvious as any of the others. Like Carrie is very out there, even though Carrie doesn't realize that she has these kind of powers. But Wayward is a lot more subtle. So it follows the stories of 3 women in one bloodline. So the first is being tried in, like, I think the Salem witch trials for being a witch. She's in prison and she's going to trial, and that's that story. The second in line is a woman who is living during the time of World War II. And the third is a woman in the modern world. So all the same ancestry, and they all have this power to them and this lineage of being a witch. But what I like about this is that it explores being a witch in actually the traditional sense of the term, which is more just practicing a life that is more in tune with nature. So if you look at the Gospel of the Witches, which I have reviewed way back when, and I read because I was very curious about it. The patron here is Diana, and the way of life is not so much, enjoying cruelty and blood and gore and all of that, but really being one with the other creatures that share this world with you and living in harmony with them. So it's very nature focused. And that's a theme that really echoes very strongly in this book. So each of these witches, so to speak, like their power comes from the earth. So the ability to understand animals and work with animals, the ability to heal and find, medicines from nature, things like that. But of course, wherever there's power, there is trouble. People are afraid of it and therefore attack it. And that's what happens in all 3 cases, but in very different ways. So what I also liked about this book, in addition to the witch angle and all of that, is that it tackles mostly a lot of realistic tropes that women have faced throughout history, and it tackles that with a touch of magic, but not so much so as to be, the hero of the piece, but really talk about the story of the women themselves, and they stay the hero through all of this, and they still have to figure out, despite their magical lineage and all of that, they still are plagued with these very real world problems and have to navigate a way out of them using their brains and using whatever resources they have. So getting a little bit deeper, but very strongly rooted within the concept of witches for my 5 Halloween reads. So that is number 2. At number 1, the witchiest of the witchy reads, we have the Once and Future Witches. It's even in the title. I'm so proud of myself. But this is another Bookstagram find. Wow, this list is really full of Bookstagram. I didn't realize until I started recording this video, but this is a great one. Why? Because it combines the entertainment elements of the first 2, your Gallant, your House of Hollow, with the depth of like Wayward and Carrie, and actually looking at this context of women in society, the idea of like historical idea of witches, why women were persecuted, but also brings in a very strong element of magic to this. So there is real magic here, and there's again 3 sisters being the magic number in the world of witches. but they also have to deal with a world where witch hunting and witches are very much real. And what I mean by that is not the historical version of witch hunts, which were essentially going after women who were smart and wanted to be educated, but actually going after women with powers in this book. But all three of them have to navigate this world, and a very dangerous world for them, in their own ways, and try and find a way to get out of this and save not just them but other people like them. So I found that to be, it's a very fun read. It's also got your elements of social commentary. It's got different kinds of characters. Even the male characters, you look at them from different angles in the context of witches, and overall a super fun read, but also gives you something to think about. So that is why The Once and Future Witches is the witchiest of the witchy books and number 1 in my top 5 reads for you guys this Halloween. But yeah, that's it. Let me know if you like this list, if you've read anything from it. But in the meantime, if you want more book recommendations, make sure to follow me at The Looking Glass World and join our community of book lovers. Other than that, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.